You guys remember about a week ago or so on the show, I think it was either last week or the week before. It's not super detrimental, but we shared a video of Bernie Sanders in the 1980s where Bernie Sanders was calling for more accountability in the media. And he was calling for, this was in the 80s, he was calling for more accountability in public television. And it's because he also called for a banning facial recognition in policing, which I was showing, hey, look, Bernie was kind of ahead of the curve in both scenarios here. He's the first 2020 candidate to call for a ban on facial recognition in policing, which is awesome. And here he was in the 80s confronting media consolidation in public television, which has since escalated big time in our current day and age. He was calling for transparency and accountability back in the 80s. So when it comes to media democracy, Bernie gets it. Bernie gets it. And here's another, for instance, of Bernie getting this one right. Check this out. Here's what Bernie wants to do. To fight corporate assault on journalism, Sanders unveils a plan to stop big media mergers and bolster independent news. Here's a quote. We cannot sit by and allow corporations, billionaires, and demagogues to destroy the fourth estate, nor can we allow them to replace serious reporting with infotainment and propaganda. Well, Bernie, I have some bad news for you there. That's already happened. I mean, I get it. He's got to play the game because he's running for office, but that has already happened, Bernie. And I'm pretty sure Bernie Sanders knows this. He puts up with the corporate media on a daily basis, which, again, whenever you find yourself rooting for a politician over a journalist, it's because the journalist is corrupt and the media has failed. And that's where we're at. You should never be rooting for a politician over a journalist, even if it's a politician you like. Even if you're like, well, I like Bernie Sanders, I like Tulsi Gabbard. Well, neither one of them are perfect. Both of them have made mistakes. Both of them have ticked me off about various things at times, and they'll tick me off in the future. They're not perfect. And when they make missteps, I should be rooting for the journalists to hold them accountable, to address it. But instead, journalists just go after clickbait. They go after surface-oriented smears and propaganda at the behest of the establishment. That's what they do to Bernie Sanders. That's what they do to Tulsi Gabbard. Neither candidate is perfect. Both candidates, there are valid points of criticism for both of them. Do you ever hear either of those valid points of criticism in the corporate press? No, you don't. You just hear cherry-pick smears for both of them, for the most part. Anyway, that's already happened, is my point. Getting back to the article. So, warning that the dissemination of journalism by big business and billionaire executives poses a major threat to democracy, Senator Bernie Sanders on Monday unveiled a plan to stop the long-running corporate consolidation of American media, take antitrust action against tech giants like Facebook and Google, and bolster independent news. So here's what he wants to do. Impose an immediate moratorium on federal approval of mergers of major media companies. Thank you. Thank you. You know, the latest merger, you know what's going on with these mergers now, like AT&T, Time Warner, and they're all merging, is that they're trying to take over streaming. That's what they want to do. All these media companies that are conglomerating and merging, it's because they have a video streaming service and they also have outlets. They want to combine that streaming service and those outlets. They want to take advantage of a post-net neutrality internet, which, again, we're fighting the front lines on net neutrality, but we technically do not have it. And they want to take over the streaming sphere because they know that that's the future. And they know that they need to take over the streaming sphere and make the internet look like cable television 2.0. And if they don't do that, they're done. So that's what they're trying to do. When you look at all these mergers, that's what you'll see in common. They have a lot of power as far as the outlets they own, and as far as the content they have first access to, and they have a streaming program of their own. They have their own video streaming program because that's what they're trying to do. So this bill would impose, this idea, this plan would impose an immediate moratorium on federal approval of mergers of major media companies. It will require media corporations to disclose whether their corporate transactions and mergers would cause significant layoffs of reporters. It will require that employees be given the opportunity to purchase media outlets through employee stock ownership plans. It would block federal merger and deregulation moves that harm people of color and women. It would reinstate and strengthen media ownership rules. Yes, with the goal of limiting the number of stations that large broadcasting corporations can own in each market and nationwide. Keep in mind, we used to have caps. We used to have caps on how much media one entity could own across the nation and how much media one entity could own in a given market. Then what happened? The Telecommunications Act of 1996 happened. Thanks, Bill Clinton. What did that do? That lifted all those protections. And that's why radio is now completely homogenized, because a couple companies, basically one company, Clear Channel, which is now Bain Capital, Mitt Romney's company, they gobbled up all the radio stations all over the country, and they just piped in right-wing radio everywhere and homogenized playlists, homogenized music. People lost their jobs everywhere. And it was just a homogenized Orwellian takeover of our radio stations. That's what happened because of Bill Clinton and the Telecommunications Act in 1996. So Bernie Sanders wants to put back some of the protections we used to have. All right, what else does he want to do? Enforce antitrust laws against tech behemoths like Facebook and Google to prevent them from using their enormous market power to cannibalize bilk and defund news organizations. Thank you. Thank you. And we need to go a step further, and we need to designate them public utilities with an elected board overseeing issues pertaining to free speech on the internet. That's what we need to do. It needs to become a public utility with an elected board overseeing the way information is disseminated on those outlets. And what I mean by that is when people are posting on YouTube and Facebook, the free speech laws of the United States are upheld. That's what I mean when I make that statement. The last point, increase funding for federal programs that support public local media in much the same way other countries already fund independent public media. Basically, what he's calling for, in short, is that we're going to have a media structure in the United States. We don't have one right now. I mean, and again, and I've said this before, you guys have probably heard me say this before. I used to say that the media structure in the United States is toxic. I have since retracted that because I feel like that was actually an inaccurate statement. The most accurate statement is the United States doesn't have a media structure, and that's toxic. We don't. We just have a corporate giveaway of our airwaves and of our media. You look at cable news, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, none of them have any business in being in news and information, nor are they news and information outlets. They are PR firms for the people who own them. CNN is a PR firm for Time Warner. MSNBC is a PR firm for Comcast. And Fox News is just part of Rupert Murdoch's wet dream. It's not news and information. None of it. None of it is. Other countries, they have actual media structures where the government funds media. There are elected boards. There are transparency laws. Norway, which has the #1 ranking for press freedom in the world, they have very strict transparency laws. Media has to disclose who owns them. They have very strict laws on advertising. Like there's certain advertisers they cannot, I'm pretty sure you can't even really advertise at all on news and information. So, those are media structures. That's a news structure. That's basically overseeing a news structure for the public good. Because in order for a democracy to work, citizens need to have access to quality information. There needs to be strong journalism. Journalism needs to be supported. And people need access to quality, accurate information to make choices. If you want people to get out and vote, that's something you need. The lack of media structure in the United States is ideal for a fascist regime, not a democracy. Our media structure and basic lack thereof, where it's just a corporate takeover, it's just a takeover of the oligarchy. It is ideal for a fascist regime, not a democracy. Bernie Sanders actually trying to do something about that. So there you go.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and